Good morning. I've been thinking some on the disparity between the righteous and the wicked without the cross because of the book of Job, really. We're reached the second part of the debates in the book of Job, and Job is going to begin pointing out a whole lot of, you keep saying this is happening to me, these bad things are happening to me because I've been sinning, when I say I haven't, and you say that this is an established fact, but look at all these wicked people that are prospering. Look at all the people that are getting away with it. Look at all the people that seem to be being blessed for being bad. And it's not an idea that's unique to the book of Job. The Psalms are full of that. How long, Lord, are the righteous going to suffer? How long are the righteous going to have a hard time? How long are the righteous going to lose while the wicked win? And part of what I was thinking about this morning when I was trying to get my brain functioning after I woke up before I had any coffee, and I was thinking about something that I heard last night. It's not from any preacher or anything like that. Don't know anything about the person, but it was actually a comedian. And he was telling the difference between nerds and geeks. So I paid attention because I've been accused of being both. And so if there's actually a difference, I would like to know what it is. Evidently, according to this person, in order to be a nerd, you have to have three things. You have to have obsession, intelligence, and social awkwardness. Now, if you only have smart and obsessed, you're not a nerd, you're a geek. That was, nerds, geeks can be socially interactive and all this. And then he went on and he did some things like, if you're smart and socially awkward, well, then you're a dork. But then you get obsessed about being a dork and you turn into a nerd because you're all three again. And if you are obsessed and socially awkward, well, then you're probably a stalker. And so his point was that there's really not a whole wide gap in between any of these things. It's a short trip into each of these little segments. And that compared, or in addition to some things that happened last night in playoffs, because it is playoff season for basketball fans, there was some pretty big gaps between some of these games that happened that really shouldn't have been that big. And it really showed the difference between the really good team and the really bad team, except, the worst team in the playoffs right now is in the playoffs. The worst basketball player in the NBA is still in the NBA. There's really not as big of a difference. And I think that's the point. We start comparing the wicked and the righteous. But I've been good, why am I suffering? Or I've been bad and I don't deserve God's love. Either way, it goes both ways. And we see this huge gap when really it's a little trip. It's a really small. Because compared to each other, there is a huge difference between a really, really good person and a really, really, really bad person. There's a huge gap. We can see it all day long. Well, at least I'm not like that person. That we measure our standards like that. Well, I'm pretty good. Not like Hitler. Really? That's your standard? Well, good for you. But the truth is, we're all a lot closer to like Hitler than we are to like Jesus without grace. Because that gap, the gap between the holy righteousness of God and the best of us, is a whole lot bigger than the gap between the best of us and the worst of us. That's actually a lot closer than we imagine. The biggest ant in the anthill is a lot bigger than the smallest ant. But when you're standing over that anthill and looking down, you can't tell the difference. God's that much better. So the question is not so much, why am I not getting what I deserve? And it's not even, why are the wicked getting away with things? It's seeing that a God who is higher than us and greater than us, in as much the same way that we are greater than the ants, would actually care about us, the good and the bad, enough to become one of us, to die in our place, so that we could have relationship. And His mercy and compassion causes Him to put up with a lot of stuff that none of us would put up with if we had His power. I can tell you right now, if I was God and wasn't walking in the grace of God, we would not have, nobody would be talking about an overpopulation problem. Because I can make this world a whole lot better with removal of, a lot of people that annoy me. Aren't we all kind of like that? If everybody would just do what I want my way, this world would be a better place. And the only one who can really say that is God. And it's true in His case. But instead of turning us all into puppets and forcing us to do what He wants us to do, what He needs us to do, what would make this world a better place, in His mercy, He is patient. And He died in our place so that we could have justice and mercy at the same time. Those two things usually can't work together. But we can have justice and mercy at the same time. We can have relationship where we actually have fellowship and communication with God. That's just mind-blowing. And that's why we compare ourselves to who He is instead of to one another. Because I can really beat myself up comparing myself to you when I don't measure up to you. Because truthfully, most of y'all are way better than me, if not all of you. Without Jesus, without grace. Some of y'all remember me, okay? Don't be acting like I'm lying up here. I was not a nice guy. I was not a good guy. And you take Jesus out of the picture, I'm still not. Or I can go the other way. Yeah, I may be crazy, but I'm not dumb. I'm better than that person. I'm better than that person. Well, that doesn't work either. It's like ants trying to figure out who's bigger and who's better. So yeah, there's still evil that happens because we're broken and we live in a broken world. Why didn't God fix it? He did. on the cross. Why haven't we seen it all yet? Because he doesn't want to miss out on relationship with any of us. So he wants us to have the time to come to him. And by grace, because of the work that Jesus did, we can cross the big gap. You know, one bad decision, one wrong choice, we can step across the line that makes the comparison between one another look like a bigger gap. Well, he made that mistake, so he's bad forever. But the truth of the matter is, that gap is small. We can all make one step and cross that line. But the step between our best righteous moment and the holiness of God is a step we cannot take without his grace, without the work that he did. There's not that much difference between any of us, regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of intelligence, regardless of hobbies, regardless of likes, whether you like sports or hunting or comic books or none of it. There's just not that much difference between us. And because of grace, one day, there's just not going to be that much difference between us and him. Now, we're still not going to be God, and he is always going to be greater, but we're going to see him, and we're going to be like him. And all this mess will be gone. Not because we're special, but because he is. So wherever you think you fit on the spectrum, I'm about average. Well, that means the vast majority of people are better than you or worse than you. And you're just kind of whatever. Or maybe you think you're pretty good. Or maybe you think you're horrible. The truth of the matter is, we can all be his and like him. And by his grace, all the wounds can be healed. All the wrongs will be made right. Whether we like it or not, they're going to be made right. Justice will prevail, and mercy is available in the cross. Because he didn't stay dead. He rose and he lives. That's good news.